Welcome everyone to today's webinar, 1 hour crown workflow. We are thrilled to have all of you here, and it's definitely going to be an information-packed webinar, so sit tight. My name is Elon Bar-Lev, and I am Ackuretta's channel representative, and I'll be your host for the day. We are equally excited to introduce to you our partners that have poured their time into helping us organize this fantastic event, and will also share with you their expertise. The International Digital Dental Academy, represented by Dr. Adam Nulty. Dr. Nulty is not just an award-winning aesthetic and general dentist, but he is also the founder of the IDDA, an organization dedicated to educating dental professionals in how to garner the potential of digital dentistry in their own offices. Our next partner for today is Evident, the online design service that will make all the difference to anyone entering digital dentistry, represented by McKim. She's the Evident digital treatment planning expert and has over 20 years of experience supporting dentists in dental labs and clinics. Our last partner for the day is BEGO, the German innovation driver in 3D printing materials, who has recently launched a permanent crown resin, a true game changer. Represented by Marius, Kempf, BEGO's senior product manager for 3D printing, who will be joining us today and giving us an in-depth look at what BEGO's VarseoSmile Crown can really do. So, as promised, we have a good webinar ahead. We'll start out with Marius Kempf, who will give us a quick insight to the BEGO material. Then, Dr. Nulty will be sharing his start-to-finish workflow with us, giving us tips on all the do's and don'ts in digital dentistry. And then finally, we'll have the Evident team introduce you to their platform. We'll finish off with a great Q&A session because I'm sure you will have a lot of questions. As I've mentioned before, it's fantastic to have so many knowledgeable colleagues aboard. The entire Ackuretta team is honored, and we'll see you all in the Q&A session. Marius, please take over.
Yeah, thank you, Elon, for this nice introduction, and thanks to Ackuretta for having us today. And yeah, hello everybody, here from Bremen in Germany. And yeah, as Elon announced, I'd like to speak to you about our 3D printing restorative materials. These are, to give a brief overview, basically VarseoSmile Crown Plus, which is the material where today definitely our focus is on. But also we offer VarseoSmile Temp, our very versatile 3D printing resin for temporary restorations, which can be put into the patient's mouth for up to 12 months. But now let's have a closer look at VarseoSmile Crown Plus, which we like to talk about as definitive, fast, and aesthetic. And on my following slides, I'd like to point out a few info about the material that are meant to support this claim. First of all, a short technical overview over the material. Just pointing out a few of the bullets here. Material printed objects can be individualized with usual composite stains and composite veneering composites. We have very low water absorption. Water absorption of the material is way below what is required by the standard, meaning a good long-term stability on the aesthetics of the material. We have a physically stabilized resin, meaning the resin won't settle in the resin tank. You don't have to mix it up. It's going to be stable for around 4 weeks. Then you might face a little clear layer on the top of the resin tank. Then you would have to mix it up. But until then, it's fully stable, and it's very unlikely to have any misprints due to the settling of the material. And of course, it's applicable for a variety of indications that we have here in some nice pictures. Of course, you can print permanent single crowns, so without time limitation to be put in the mouth of your patients. And also crowns on abutments are possible, tabletops, veneers and veneer shells, inlays, onlays, partial crowns. And not to forget, the material is clearly visible on radiographs, as you can see here. By the way, that's a radiograph of a mother of a colleague of mine. You can see it's as visible as the ceramic restorations that are positioned next to the VarseoSmile Crown restoration. And what I found really surprising, we newly validated the S-sized and M-sized building platform by Ackuretta for the Ackuretta Soul. And we found the S-sized building platform up to 141% faster than the L-sized building platform, meaning that a print job that with the large building platform would take 41 minutes, it just took us 17 minutes to do the same print job with the small building platform. So really great improvement on the fastness of the workflow. Another one on the workflow, we hear from some practitioners, some dentists in the market. They don't like the sandblasting step, which you usually have to do during the production workflow of VarseoSmile Crown Plus. This is due to the cleaning with ethanol or isopropanol, and doing so, a little bit of the ceramic filling comes out of the material, and you see it as a whitish layer on the surface of the crown. And then usually you would have to sandblast the object in order to get rid of this whitish layer. Since this is a thing, sandblasting is a thing many practitioners don't like too much. We validated a new cleaning workflow where the cleaning is done with surfactants mainly, with a cleaning solution called Innovaprint Wash. And doing so, you do not need alcohol, and you won't face this whitish layer on the surface. So even easier and quicker workflow in order to produce restorative objects from VarseoSmile Crown Plus. Now let's have a look at the aesthetics of VarseoSmile Crown Plus. The material is available in 7 Vida shades, as you can see here, and also pretty new, since a few weeks, available in a bleach shade. So broad variety of colors available. And let's have a closer look at the material itself. It's got a very good ratio of opacity and translucency, as you can see here in these pictures. And also, I like to point out the fluorescence of the material, which is really close to natural truth, as you can see on this picture here. But not only believe me, but please look for proof of the long-term stability of VarseoSmile Crown Plus. BEGO has conducted a lot of studies together with renowned universities, for example, the Ludwig-Maximilians University in Munich. And all these studies are summarized in this small brochure you can see here, which is available on the BEGO website for download. Just go to BEGO, use the QR tag you can see here to download this brochure and to convince yourself about the stability and the great properties and the great performance of VarseoSmile Crown Plus. Now, it's the end of my part. Thank you very much for listening. I hope we'll talk later during the Q&A session. And now I hand over to Professor Adam Nulty. Thank you very much.
Welcome everybody to this lecture on the 1-hour 3D printed crown workflow. Today's lecture is brought to you by Ackuretta 3D printers, BEGO resins, and Evident Design Lab. Now, we're going to show you how you can combine all of these things to really improve your patient care with quick and effective in-house restorations that are permanent restorations. The science is there. The workflow is there now, the speed is there. So without further ado, we're going to crack on. I'm going to start by talking to you a little bit about my history and the barriers I've faced to 3D printing, but also we're going to talk about what experience I've had to get to this point. And then we're going to crack on. We're going to talk about the process itself, the research. So let's get going. So I teach through the International Digital Dental Academy, which I oversee, and we started that collaboration between us and dentists, clinicians and technicians from all around the world. We have a great number of courses now that really focus on a wide breadth of different workflows, from 3D printing to CAD/CAM, from places like the US and Europe and afar, where people can log on and really learn in a remote pathway to be able to take these technologies to the next level. How we got started with the IDDA was really through the frustration that we had as clinicians over the last 10 years of using this technology, and some of us were using it even before that with the very early CEREC 3 and onwards. And these technologies really were provided to us as clinicians, but the support levels were pretty poor. So we basically had to teach ourselves, and we came together to try and provide other clinicians who took these hardwares to make sure that they could understand and use them to, again, provide excellent patient care. And it's grown from there. We now have one of the world's largest database of dentists who collaborate in a brilliant community that's friendly and supportive of each other. No matter what time of day, you can put a comment, you can support through WhatsApp, through Facebook and other social media channels, or even through the website itself. And it gives us the ability then to really understand if something's going wrong on a path that's for technology that we have in our clinic, that might be something that someone has that's very specific to their clinic in another part of the world. And if they're asking a question, someone somewhere will have found the same problem and come up with a solution. So it means really we can all work together, and that's the whole idea and ethos behind the IDDA, is community and support. So why do we need to 3D print in the first place? And why would you choose to integrate 3D printing into your surgery? There are some aspects of 3D printing that might be right for you and some that are not. And again, that really is similar in digital dentistry to how scanners can be varied according to which clinic they use, whether it's an orthodontic or restorative purpose. But in terms of 3D printing and choosing a 3D printer, it's important to consider what restorative or surgical solutions you're going to take from that 3D printing strategy and workflow to make sure that you're providing the care that you want in an approved method. So how do we choose between them? And why do we choose certain printers over others? Well, for me personally, I've got plenty of different printers. You know, over the last 10 years, like I said, I've probably had a collection of 10, 15 printers over that time. And there's a big variety in the way that they can integrate into your surgical or restorative workflows, or orthodontic if you're printing the models themselves. If you're just printing models, then it doesn't necessarily mean there's much of a care in terms of where we have to consider the biocompatible materials, but in terms of surgical guides and in terms of temporaries now and future products that we're going to be using with, you know, direct print aligners, we need to make sure that, you know, it's easy for us as a clinician to use in office. And so if we've got a solution that provides easy one-click pathways for us as a workflow, then that's obviously going to influence it, because, you know, a technician is going to be more adept, and you know, all credit to technicians worldwide. They've been using digital technologies for longer, and they're more used to having an in-depth workflow where they can control many different parameters. As a clinician, we want a very, very simple workflow where we can just take something, click a button and make it work. And especially if we're going to introduce the team is obviously an important part of any clinician's office. If we've got a team that has different nurses or auxiliaries that we can involve in the 3D printing process, we can involve them by helping them with a simple process that they can then print the models, print the surgical guides, and understand how to post-process them correctly so that you have the finished article without taking up your valuable time as a clinician in your office. So there's plenty to think about, and I would urge you to go forward with further learning and research all the different types of, you know, printing technologies that are available, the different types of printing solutions that are available, and look for one that fits your practice. For me personally, at the minute, the one that I'm using the most is the Ackuretta system, and that's simply because it's a very simple and easy use to workflow. But it's also, for me, because I'm very controlling in what I would want to use, it's an open system. So I can not only click and use the systems, the resins that are appropriate for that manufacturer, but I can choose whatever I want on the market. And Ackuretta are very good at selecting all of these different materials and calibrating them for the use in their software. So have a think about things, and if you ever need any questions, like we said before, you can go on the Digital Dental Academy group on Facebook and ask away and find the solution to your problems. So I got into 3D printing quite a number of years ago, before really it was mainstream, when I was using FDM printers. FDM printers moved on then to importing different types of international printers from China, places like that. I started to use resin printers really when the initial Form 1 came around, and then that developed and provided an easy workflow with the Form 2 because it was pretty plug and play. Since then, with 3D printing, we've kind of evolved to being able to be open and use loads of different resins. The problem that we face or have faced over the last year or two is really that things have expanded massively, so we have a lot of cheaper printers and we have a lot more dedicated dental printers. and they're each their own. It's like scanners. You can have a different scanner for different clinics depending on their needs. Whereas with 3D printing now, one of the nice things is we're seeing some of the advancements in digital dentistry with 3D printing in terms of the newer dedicated 3D printers. One great example of that is the Ackuretta Sol, and the Ackuretta system really provides an open pathway to be able to use loads of different types of resins, but also enables you to have a very easy workflow. So with a couple of clicks, we bring in the file, we can select over exactly what we're using, and the AI software will position and produce the supports that we need to print that accurately and in an easy way. They've also been able to bring in some of the new developments in terms of build platform size, which means that we can bring in a faster protocol which allows the resin to flow under the build plate easier. And overall, it's a more streamlined process. So overall, over the last 10 years of me using 3D printers, I'm very happy with the way that technology has changed, because now we can really make sure that we can provide the patient with the very best care possible.
So what are we going to cover today? We're going to talk about the 3D printed crown workflow with permanent resin. We're going to talk about what the research tells us in terms of biocompatibility, safety, strength, and the effects it has using that material in the mouth, how it's comparable to other materials. We're going to talk about the patient's journey, and we're going to talk about how remote design services like evidence design services can really improve your patient care by making it more efficient. You don't have to design everything in-house. Obviously, someone like myself does. I do that because I like to control everything. But for some people, either you don't have the software available, or you just want to really get on board with providing in-house restorations, but you don't want to spend the time in the design phase. And that's absolutely fine. Equipment factors we're going to talk about to increase your speed and some of the materials that we're going to be using. And we're also going to talk about finishing that restoration to give a really nice fit patient's result at the end. So let's get going. The first stage, we're going to talk about the digital process. So what's involved? What is the workflow that we're going to use? So what is the 1 hour 3D printed crown workflow? Well, it's the same workflow that you're going to be working with anything in dentistry. We've got the consultation, the consent. The difference with this is we're going to be sending to remote design service. In this case, you'll see in the example at the end of this lecture that we used evidence remote lab service where they designed the restorations. But say you were doing just a single 1 hour crown, you can design it yourself if you have a CAD software like Ackuretta, or you upload to something like Evident where they will do the design for you. You can carry on with your normal everyday dentistry, and then when the time's right, when it comes back, you arrange for the patient, whether you've arranged for that to be a whatever period in the future, the design comes back, you 3D print that out, finish it, process it, and potentially even fit it on the same day. The overall process means that you can stick to your same in-house CAD principles that you've been working with. I'm going to go over how the variances with normal CAD design in terms of prep, the research we're going to talk about, and I'll show you a nice case at the end about how we've integrated this. But overall, realistically, the 1 hour 3D printed crown workflow is absolutely possible to provide simple and aesthetic restorations same day. So what does the research tell us? Well, this first study by German et al., this is a break-in load and abrasion resistance study that is a 10-year chewing simulation. The objective of this study was to look at the performance of 3D printed crowns made of the VarseoSmile Crown Plus, and then focus on the break-in load and abrasion behavior to see if it was really something we could class as a permanent material. And the conclusion they had was that these crowns achieve break-in loads more than twice as high as the maximum human masticatory forces. So in terms of chewing simulation, we know that it's strong enough. And that leads us on to looking at this study, which the abrasion and surface roughness. It's all well and good if we know that it's strong enough, But if the material is abrasive in the mouth, then that's obviously going to cause us problems. This study by Nicholas Albrecht in Germany, he provided a 5-year toothbrushing simulation to see about the loss of mass and see if it would provide surface roughness on the printed crown with a simulated electric toothbrush used, which would obviously simulate a real life situation with these materials being used in the long term to see if the material would then roughen in time. And obviously with this case in this study, the toothbrushing simulation was possible to demonstrate that the crowns were significantly greater loss of mass than those of the VarseoSmile Crown. VarseoSmile crowns were preserved a lot longer and protected the existing tooth substance in the best possible way. So just like using composite materials to rehabilitate mouths with wear, then potentially we can use this sort of material in the same situations. The roughness was clearly below the significant threshold in this study. So again, it's something which we're happy to impart and use into the patient's mouth. And this study is obviously another important one, where we look at the long-term cementation stability, see whether the crowns de-cement over time, and also whether they form marginal gap. So again, another 5-year chewing simulation was provided in this study by Guth et al. In the medical center in Munich. And again, their objective was to study the conditions resembling the application of a long-term cementation, de-cementation behavior, and the tendency towards microleakage. The conclusion here was that the studies provide evidence that the 3D printed crowns made of VarseoSmile Crown did not exhibit a tendency towards de-cementation. The loss of composite material or marginal gap formation using the commercially available dual cure and light luting composites like VariLink aesthetic provided a stable bond to the tooth, which is obviously something which is incredibly important. Again, it's paramount that if we're going to be using these materials, they've got to be safe for the patient. And that leads us on to the next study, which I'm going to look at. So biocompatibility, if you've seen in the forums, I've put a couple of things over time about biocompatibility, which is often overlooked. People use these 3D printers and resins without really understanding the biocompatibility certification process. But in terms of actual biocompatibility for the restoration in the patient's mouth, this study was a nice one because it was looking at the influence of different post-cure parameters on the mechanical properties of the 3D printed crown. So they wanted to see whether there was an effect on the material sitting next to the gingiva and whether there was any variation in the cell viability when different ways of washing, post-curing were used. And what that concluded was that the cell viability varied significantly according to the post-curing time. Now, what does that tell us? It tells us that it's incredibly important, just like those posts that I've talked about before, that it's incredibly important to have a process of manufacture that is CE-marked, that is a validated workflow. If we don't have that validated workflow, then we can't be sure that it is going to post-cure properly. It isn't going to be finished properly, and therefore we don't know what the effect on the biology is going to be. If we know that that process and the workflow that we've put into place is tested, has been trialed, and is biocompatible and is safe for the patient, then we can rest assured that those other studies that we have where we look at the strength, the cementation stability, that we know that we're actually providing something of benefit to the patient. The final study I'm going to look at here is this fracture load study by Zimmerman et al. And this was looking at the fracture load of CAD-CAM fabricated and 3D printed composite crowns looking at the functional thickness. So their objective was to look at the subtractive and additive technologies, compare them, and they concluded that particle-filled composite resins may have advantageous material characteristics compared to ceramic materials for minimal restoration thicknesses. And that makes sense, especially when we conventionally look at restorations that we provide for a rehabilitation case, where we're rebuilding the occlusion because composite wears more naturally, it flexes more, and like they've put here, it might offer us more possibilities, especially in the 3D printed era, to be able to print these restorations in a way that will provide the patient of maximum benefit and improve our patient care. But obviously that again leads us on to how do we make sure that these restorations that we're providing are going to be strong enough. It's all well and good saying that they might be strong enough in this study, they might be biocompatible, but we need to look at how do we prep for it. If we look at how do we prep for that composite material, that can have a big impact. And obviously in all of these studies, they will use the perfect scenario. So what do we do in terms of our preps? So in terms of the preparation style that we're going to be using, then as per this study here, we've got the margin that is either a chamfer or a shoulder margin. And from this study, we can look at the effect of the marginal, the internal, and the overall discrepancies of CAD/CAM composite resin onlays and crowns with these two different prep styles. My personal favorite, as well as this anyway, is the chamfer. And why? It's because these are really aesthetic materials. So, if we're going to be using composites and blending them in with the tooth structure, then a really nice bevel is going to create a nice gradient into the tooth to show that natural tooth shade as it becomes thinner and thinner towards the edge of that bevel. So realistically, in terms of aesthetics, then a nice chamfer margin is going to be really nice for that. But also, like we can see in this study, that it is actually more advantageous in terms of strength to create a really nice smooth structure. It's a different concept to what we have when we're looking at manufacturing with a 4 or 5 axis cam machine, because in those scenarios there's a burr that's got to get into all of these things, into all the different parts of the prep. When we're looking at a composite crown and more precisely a 3D printed crown, then the 3D shape that we produce in our CAD software is going to be translated into the 3D print pretty precisely. When we take a 3D design from a CAD software normally, and we take that through to CAM manufacture, more often than not, the resemblance of the fitting surface it's nowhere near what we design, and that'll be because the CAM software will alter the fitting surface to fit the burrs unless you have a very precise and easy, smooth preparation style. And again here, we still want to maintain that. We still want a really smooth preparation. And that's even more important when it comes to the force. And you can see through that same study that when they looked at the forces involved when we have a chamfer margin versus that shoulder prep, the chamfer margin produces a lot more distributed force, and so the load is spread and the restoration is going to last better for longer. So really, when people try and compare different materials, it's also important to look at the prep style of that clinician and also what you're providing as a prep style for that material, because if we don't alter our prep style to suit whatever material we're using, then realistically we're going to end up in trouble by just putting a blanket, I'll prep this way because that's the way I've always done it for CAD restorations. This is going to be a little bit different. You're going to want a little bit more smoother margins to blend it in, but also to distribute the forces and bring those chamfer margins all around the tooth. So let's look at this, the patient journey. So when we're bringing these 3D printed crowns into the patient journey, then, we can integrate 3D printing with digital impression scanners. It's a natural progression. We can make all sorts of things. It doesn't have to be these crowns. It can be models, mock-ups, surgical guides, night guards, so many different materials these days. And a printer like the Ackuretta, why do I love the Ackuretta? Because it's open, it's beautifully open. It's all the resin parameters, not just into the printer and the software, working so nicely, but it's there with the cure as well, so that we can just simply, quickly and easily provide a really proper workflow for the patient that's going to be a really nice same-day restoration. And the epitome of that is permanent crowns. I mean, permanent restorations that we're going to use, inlays, onlays, the aesthetics. Yeah, you can spend more time and get things looking really good, just the same as composite bonding on the front teeth. But for simple posteriors, at the end of the day, if we can print this in 15 minutes, it doesn't have to go through the oven. We can polish it in our hand and it's there, it's bonded, it's strong into place, premolars, molars, inlays, onlays, crowns, all day, every day. But what about remote design? So let's look at the evident design process. At the end of the day, when you're using a remote design service, it can really make your practice so much more efficient in terms of really enabling you to bring in the best of in-house digital dentistry, but keep on board with, making sure that you've got the very best of lab technicians' knowledge and skills to really help you in your workflow. At the end of the day, something which is, it's analogous to what I tell people with guided implant surgery. If we're designing a guide, you can do that in-house, and it's a lot quicker and easier now than it ever has been. But, in terms of, guided surgery, there was a time a while back, a few years ago, where I would be designing a surgical guide and I would be spending pretty much the same time overall. The patient would be in the chair quicker because the surgery would be quicker because I'd be using the surgical guide. I'd be having a lot more minimal flap, but I would still be spending the time designing that guide behind the scenes. And the same is true with this in terms of CAD design. If we're looking at restorations, then I'm going to be designing that crown, not a lab technician. So that's all well and good if you want to control the whole process. I've got all of the CAD software and I love designing things. For me, it's like a little bit of an artistic thing that I like to do, but it's not for everybody. And if you find that, CAD design isn't for you, then there is no better way than getting involved with a good remote design service, especially like this evident case that I'll show you at the end of this lecture. It honestly was an absolute pleasure to upload through them. The online portal was very, very easy. You can see in the background, this is sped up. It's running about 3 or 4 times the speed, but that process was really elegant. You just simply create an account, you upload the patient files, you upload the patient photos, and it guides you if you want to go through the KOI series. Maria's going to talk about this as well, but the whole process from start to finish was very, very easy and very, very quick to come back as well. So when it comes back, then they'll send you a link to your email to just download it. I got that the next morning, and I just set it to print. So for me in this case, that I'll show you at the end of this, the patient journey was very, very efficient. And very, very efficient for me as a clinician. I could then basically work in the same way as you would with a conventional lab in terms of providing my standard, prep and scan routine visit. Once that's done, upload, and then I'm free then to see another dentist, to see another patient. I'm free to go ahead, provide other treatments to that patient, a different patient or whatever. And then get the patient back to fit those in much the same way, but at a much shorter span. But we've also got the same advantages that you do through in-house dentistry, where if you've got those restorations at hand, then digitally you can back those up If something goes wrong, then you can reprint that, remill it, whatever it is, and you've got it there again. The beauty of the 3D printed side of this is that when that comes back from Eviden, they can send that bit to you ready set up to just upload straight into the Alpha software, print, good to go. And what that means is that you really are just popping it in, clicking a button. You wait 15, 25 minutes max for those restorations to print, single, plural, whatever, doesn't really matter. And then once that's done, then we are good to go. So let's have a look at the slicing software event. That next step, once it comes back from Eviden, where do we go from there? So the restorations have come back. We've received the STLs. We've gone online onto the Eviden portal. We've downloaded those STLs. So then we'll go ahead, we'll take those into our slicing software. And the slicing software is Alpha in Ackuretta's case. And they've got these different size platforms, which is, a really elegant solution to speed up the production of these in-house designs. And you can see in this case, I'm printing a mock-up, and this is trying to fit 4:4 over the top, and I'm using the small platform. And again, that can, it'll just rejig that and reorientate that appropriately. You've got to be careful when you're printing these restorations that you've got to orientate things in the right way. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, there's an interesting couple of studies online that I could show you, which, again, look on the groups, go on the Digital Dental Academy group, the 3D printing groups, and you'll see talk about orientation in terms of 3D printing mock-ups and restorations. If we print these, and it's a kind of similar concept you've got to think about to the restorations in terms of surgical guides. Surgical guides, dentures, we don't want to be printing with the fitting surface down. We want to print the incisal ledge down. And how that helps you as well, if you've got multiple teeth, just like in this case, and why I want to show you this slicing of this set of teeth is they're all connected. This is a mock-up that's going to go over the patient's mouth. One thing you can do is if they're already pre-linked in the software, which you can request, or request a second set that is linked, then print those, incisal edge down. The supports are auto-generated by the Alpha software. And then once that's done, keep those supports on to try it on the patient. You can even bond them into place with the supports on. And then just quickly whiz off those supports. They'll just click off once they're bonded into place. And I don't mean a permanent cure if it's a mock-up. I mean just spot etch and bond those into place just temporarily. Hold those in place, pop off those supports. But then that everything has been guided into place by those supports and that base to hold it in the position that it's meant to be in it. And in terms of not just that one restoration, but all of them together. So the anatomical position of all of these mock-ups will sit into place nicely. And that's true even if you're doing posterior. So say you've got a premolar and you printed that one tooth. Again, sometimes it's really nice to just have very fine supports and just use that, bond it into place. So then it does two things. It will speed up your post-processing because we want to process with the supports in place. They're very fine. They'll just click off after, so that's okay. We don't need to worry about how hard they go, but it'll mean you've got something to get hold of to cement the restoration in place. Once that restoration has been cemented, you click them off. So even if it's a permanent crown, if it's an inlay, if it's an onlay, they'll use those supports and that support base to guide it into place. And that's a really nice way that I like to do this with these materials, because I find that they can be a little bit slippery and a little bit dainty. And, I don't know about you guys, but when you're trying to position an inlay or an onlay, something that's fiddly, then it can go out of place very easily. If I'm holding that support structure, then it makes my life very easy. So I can more accurately put that into place.
So one of the nice things about the Ackuretta Sol printing solution is that we've got a direct integration no matter whether we're going straight from a scanner, say for example the Medit scanners, or we can take it direct from our ExaCAD. And in the ExaCAD DentalCAD software, where I designed these temporaries, we could send that straight through with a single click to the Alpha software, and that would pick up straight away for us to enable the settings to be input and then print them direct on the Ackuretta Sol on a medium-based platform.
So let's look a little bit more in depth about the actual Ackuretta system in terms of how that helps us with printing single or multiple crowns. You can see in this case there's 6 crowns there that we're positioning, and these are minimally invasive crowns. You can see the very minimal coverage, almost really veneers. And this is printed on their small build platform. There's also the medium build platform, but their smaller build platforms, how they help is they basically allow the resin to flow back in quicker. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen the resins that are the tooth colored resins, but they are very, very sticky resins. They're very thick. And so by allowing that resin to flow back in quicker, it can shave off minutes and minutes off your overall print time. And you can see on the right here, I'm saying print one or many in under 25, 30 minutes. And it really is under 25, 30 minutes. The fastest I've ever had was 14 minutes. And so realistically with us, we want to make sure that we use this build platform to maximize our efficiency. And you've got to keep in mind as well that it doesn't matter whether you just have one or a few. It doesn't matter how much of that build platform is covered, that at the end of the day, the build size affects the speed overall because of the number of layers, not the size of the restoration. It isn't like the old SLA printers, which were printing with a laser that would run across, and the bigger the volume of the restoration, the bigger the print, that would take longer because the laser would have to cover more of an area. With this, it doesn't matter. The whole layer prints at the same time. So the factor that affects the speed the most is the number of layers, so the height of your restoration. And if you've got one that's higher than all the others, stick the others in. It's not going to affect your overall time. What's great about the Ackuretta platform is it's completely open. You look at all these different resin manufacturers. I mean, they will go out of their way to make sure that they can integrate all of these, and probably a lot more over time as they're going to come in. And there really are some great resins. So why is that important? Because you'll get some printer manufacturers and they have one great resin, but you don't want to be limited to just that one great resin. You want to print your surgical guides in another resin, or you want to print your denture resin in another resin from a different manufacturer. So having that ability, that open architecture, for me, is incredibly important. Now, that kind of leads me on to the difference between looking at a printer at the level of the Ackuretta Sol or looking at some of the cheaper printers. So, for example, on our IDDA courses, we give away like the Creality printers, and they are great. Some of the cheaper Chinese printers are phenomenal in what they can do. But the problem is that when you start getting more involved with 3D printing and you start using some of these resins you can see here, without naming one in particular, some of them are a little bit more finicky in terms of when you're printing, having those parameters very, very strict. So again, being efficient, yes, it's possible to use any printer. And if you calibrate those parameters and you pop those in, good, that's great. But for me, I just want everything easy and smooth. I want to click through those buttons and know that those settings have been calibrated and tested and validated. And if I'm going to be using a biocompatible resin, even more so. So for me, it's a natural evolution to go for a more dedicated 3D dental printer, simply because we can use all these resins from all these different manufacturers and really make the most of them in a predictable and accurate way.
Another important consideration that we must make when we're talking about 3D printing is if we're using something that directly touches or is used with the patient, whether that be for the case here where we're using temporaries like the BEGO resin or any other resin like Ackuretta crown resin. It doesn't matter whether it's a temporary or permanent solution. If it's in contact with the patient, just the same as if it was a guided surgery surgical guide that we're printing, it needs to be a validated workflow. And that's important because for Class 2 approval, we need to make sure that it's safe for the patient. And that workflow that's been approved, that involves not only the 3D printing aspect, but also the post-processing. And post-processing is an incredibly important aspect of 3D printing, one that's often overlooked, and that's really important because we have to make sure that we remove any of the resin that's left on the printed product using an alcohol wash and then curing it afterwards appropriately. Different materials require different parameters in terms of the wash and also the final cure. And using a system such as the Ackuretta Curie and the wash means that we can appropriately wash and cure the material according to its needs. And that works very nicely, especially with the Curie, where we can select the correct material that we're using, click start, and it will cure with a flash that's appropriate. And we need to make sure of that, obviously, to provide the very best of patient care.
So like I've alluded to before when we were talking about the way that you can integrate this with different parts of your patient workflow, it really, having the permanent resin gives us a lot more possibilities than we would have thought about, where we could direct print restorations to go for implants, for teeth, for custom healing abutments, safe in the knowledge that it's a stronger and it is a biocompatibly permanent material. So, for me, even something as simple as like this case. So for example, like this case where we're using the bridge to place a couple of implants and having a temporary bridge sitting onto the adjacent teeth next door, just while things heal. And I'm using the material to create really nice ovate pontics so that when my permanent restoration is made, then I can try and create a little bit more of an emergence. And obviously, I'm not going to go through that whole case today, but suffice to say that, controlling the soft tissue can make a big difference in terms of the overall aesthetics when we get to the end stage. So being able to control not only the buccal portion of the restoration, but also the fitting surface into the ginger as well as the teeth makes a big difference in terms of what we're doing and using the materials for to incorporate in various workflows. And that leads us on to finishing. So, like we've discussed before, we alluded to the fact that we really need a validated workflow for this. And what better way than to use the Ackuretta wash and cure? It really is a beautiful system to achieve that golden 1 hour workflow where we have calibrated resins, they print fast, and then we know by using them we can use this dual wash, pop it through, and we can adjust, depending on the size of the platform, we can adjust those little metal braces to sit into the frame of the wash on each side to support even the small size build platform, and then wash those restorations and then pop them in the correct on the cure here to make sure that it is processed through completely and all of the resin is converted. So we know we're going to be placing something that's biocompatible and safe. The beautiful thing with the Curie is the material libraries that we can just put in manually or update the SD card there. And that means you just select it from the list and it will cure to the correct time and intensity that's set and calibrated for that specific resin.
So I'm holding this out of the light to show you this now, but my advice again would be to, as soon as you've taken it out of the machine, to get it straight into the wash. If you leave it too long, these lights I've had set so they don't give off UV light, but I have a window here, and I'm doing this very quickly because I want to make sure that the light doesn't come through the window and set things. believe it or believe it or not, the most powerful LED, or the most powerful UV light, I should say, that can cure these materials is the sun. So what that means is that if you have an open window, or a window that's that light can get in easily with your 3D printer, then it's really important to you to get a blind that you can just lower very quickly for when you're taking the print out of the printer. So we have this mock-up. The mock-up's here, it's ready, it's looking beautiful. The next stage you want to do is to set this into the wash. Now, if we go over, in the cleaning, we've got a two-stage system for this. So we've got the dirty side and the clean side. The dirty side, if I move this out of the way, you can see one of them actually is just dropped down a little bit. I'm going to put this back on. And let's just set that here. And these little metal rods I'll take out, actually, we can set at different intervals so that we can rest the different size build platforms appropriately. And I'm just going to drop this in with the metal platforms set just wide enough apart so it's going to support at the sides here, and then let me wash that. So I'm going to set that down here, just onto there. And the liquid I've got is just sitting above where the base of that is. So I'm going to sit this on here. I'm going to set this to wash. I'm going to press the mode. I'm going to set the first one to, let's say we could do 5 minutes, something small, to wash on that side, and then we'll wash the other side, okay? Once we've washed both sides, then we're going to place into the oven, okay? The oven. I'm thinking about porcelain. So into the light curing chamber. So in this light curing chamber, again, one of the great features of Curie that we have from Ackuretta, we can see the flashes going on, we know it's working, we know whether it's on. UV light's obviously dangerous to the eyes. We want to make sure that we're wearing glasses if you're going to be involved in that. But we don't need to with this, because we've got this little window, we can see everything's going on, and we can see it stops. But another one of the great features of the Curie is the fact that the material library, we can go through and we can choose whatever we're going to be using and select it, ready to go to press start, and that will cure away. So for the process of, once it's finished printing, so this would take 20 minutes for the print of those, then we'd pop into the cure, 5 minutes each side, then we pop into the cure here. So we've got 20 minutes, 2 5-minute washes, 10-minute cure, okay? So in total about 40 minutes, okay?
In terms of finishing kits, you know, there are plenty of different finishing kits on the market. I really like the CAD finishing kits from Meisinger. You know, there's the Ceradottas ones, there's the Kempf ones, there's all sorts of different kits that are very, you know, a little bit, but using the same pretty much tools. I've used these with Ceric for the best part of a decade, and they really are lovely kits. But something which you can use as well as that, once you've taken up that level of polish, is, you know, specialty brushes that are composite based. So things like these grooved diamond brushes, any of the bristle brushes I like to use, I just keep one of them to just go through at the end, and you can get them to fit either lab burr or you know intraoral handpiece on a slow speed, and just take up that shine. And they really do shine the surface a lot more than if you were to just simply polish with conventional polishers. These bristle brushes are impregnated with, you know, diamond particles, or, you know, they're specifically designed in a way to maximize the shine and composite. Let's have a look at that in a little bit more detail.
Okay, everybody, so you've printed your crowns. Your crowns now have come out with beautiful material all ready to go, and they just need a little bit of finishing. So I'm going to show you next a little bit of close-up to see how I finish these crowns to get a really nice result. I use the Vitronamic stains and stain kit and the glaze kit from them. For me, that works really nicely, but there's plenty of different composite stains and glazes on the market for you to work with. But I personally like to either just polish and have it so there's no glaze, and sometimes that works a bit nicer in my hands because then there's no glaze that can wear off, or if I make any adjustments I don't have to worry about the glaze. But if I want to add any accentuation, if I'm matching a single tooth, then there are different ways again. I can stain and glaze here, or I can make a very thin shell crown, like Wally Rennie recommends, where you have a thin shell crown that you can stain and glaze on the inside of that. For me personally, I think my favorite way is just simply to polish and finish by hand here and then sit in the mouth. I tend to find that these composite materials tend to look a little bit more translucent towards the tip anyway, so I get a little bit of a gradation in colour, which is nice. So I don't tend to need to go over the top in terms of adding glazes, but that's the kit I would use if I did. So let's show you a bit of a close-up of me finishing this crown, and then once I've done that, I'll show you the difference between the one next door if I glaze it as well. Okay. So in this case, I'm going to be using our IDDA CAD finishing kit, but as I've said before about the Vitronamic, there are plenty of different polishing kits on the market, some really, really nice ones, including the Meisinger kit. Now, if we've used a straight handpiece before, you should be absolutely fine with finishing off a crown once it's printed. The really nice thing is that we print with very minimal supports. So all we're going to do is just smooth off those little sections, and then we can add a little bit of surface characteristics if we want to. So I'm just going to turn this on. I'm going to turn it down a little bit. And then all we're going to do is just polish back just this little area where those supports were. And then once that's done, then I'm going to just add a little bit of surface contouring just to accentuate that surface texture. And obviously you'll do this in different ways depending on your style, the patient's needs. But I would say, do you know what the nice thing is with the fact that you can print off multiple ones of these? The first time you do this, maybe print off a couple of different ones and then have a go trying it a couple of different ways, just so that you can have a practice. And then I guarantee you within a few times of printing crowns, then you're going to be a lot better than when you first started off. So we've added a little bit of surface texture. Next thing, I'm just going to start the polishing process. So again, I'm just adding these goes one at a time, and obviously whatever type of polisher you've got in-house might have different brands, there'll be different colors, but you want not too harsh because the composite's going to polish back quite a lot easier than if you're dealing with something like Emax or something like that. You'll take away a lot of the surface features that you just added very, very easily. So one of the nicest ways, once we've gone through that little bit of polishing and surface texture, to really get it shiny, I like these horsehair brushes. They really seem to bring out the shine in composite. So let's show you that. So you can see even instantly that is already going very, very nice and shiny. And that's because we've already taken a little bit of the polish there. And this is really just finishing off that polish. And I the same thing when we're dealing with intraoral composite. You can use a little polishing brush, that you would use for prophy purposes, and use those slowly on an intraoral composite, and that looks beautiful. But that now, as I'm just polishing this, and I do tend to find this BEGO resin just tends to polish beautifully. Hopefully you can see that there is looking very, very nice. And there we go, that's looking all finished. Now, let me compare that. If we, say for example, wanted to take that a little bit shinier, add a little bit of glaze, then we can take some of that glaze that, like I've got from the Vita kit here, and just very, very thinly apply that over the top. And I would still do this once you've gone through the same process of polishing, and that's for two reasons really. If you do this after you've polished, you might decide you don't need to do any more, and in which case then that's it, you're done. But otherwise we can just cure this over the top. And I would suggest to, if you're using stains, then to add little bits, okay? Once you've added the little bits of stains that you're going to be adding to create the finish you want, and then add the glaze, just flash cure that a little bit for each part, and then once it's completely done, pop it in the oven again for a couple of minutes. I say the oven, forgive me, in the Curie, in the flash chamber, just to really make sure that that glaze is cured onto the composite surface. So you can see now we've got some really nice reflections going on over that surface texture, and that's ready to cement once we've done that final cure in the composite oven. Me personally, I probably would have left it with the polish that I had from the polishing wheels and also the horsehair brush, simply because I can adjust it in the mouth and then shine it back up a little bit without much effort.
So in this case, you know, we've used, this is the final thing we're going to show you today. This is the case that we've done 0 prep coverage crowns 3 to 3 for this patient. It was a very simple process. Patient came in, I took a smile with the a retracted smile photo full face, and also a full face smile without retraction. Uploaded that to Evident with an intraoral scan of the upper and the lower in the correct bite and occlusion. Sent that off the next morning, I think within a few hours effectively. Evident popped that back over to me, downloaded, set that up into the Ackuretta printer. And you can see here this video moving, that's the design that that Evident have been doing in the background. And you can see on the pictures on the left, that's their pre-op, the mock-up that's been done by Evident, which is gorgeous, and then printed that directly off on their Ackuretta with BEGO resin. I've accentuated, this is with polish, but I've accentuated with little hues of blue and some golden hues on the canines, just to really try and blend it in, because it's just 3 to 3. And that's, you know, it's done a nice job for me. I mean, don't get me wrong, this is, it's starting to go down the road of the level of aesthetics that we would use if we were doing hand composites for composite bonding additions. You know, with practice, and you know, this is directly on fit, so you can see that the gums here still need a little bit of settling. Obviously things have been trimmed there. Once he comes back for a review in a few weeks, then we'll be able to polish up again. But the overall aesthetics with these materials are really excellent. And I don't know if you've ever taken pictures with, you know, really strong flashes, but composite for me always tends to seem a little bit dull on pictures. You don't really get the same level of lifelikeness that you seem to get in real life from the, you know, when you're looking at it, you know, from a, you know, one-to-one perspective. When you see the composites on pictures, it always tends to look a little bit dull. This material shines a lot more when you polish it. So it's a really nice way for me to do minimally invasive dentistry. I'm going to be using this for crowns, inlays, onlays, obviously in the correct and appropriate cases, and I'll select those appropriately. I do have the other parts of my armamentarium with, you know, cam manufacturer through the milling machines, but, you know, for the sake of a single crown, a single inlay, a single onlay, I would 100% recommend go and try this out. It's a very beautiful and elegant workflow, and it's very quick. Don't forget, the end of the day, if we're doing this with a printed crown and the print takes 15 minutes, that's 15 minutes for all 6 of these that we placed. So because of the size of these, I think it was something like 18 minutes to print all of these. And then once that was printed, then the finish, 10 minutes to finish, another 10 minutes cure. So we're looking at overall, 40 minutes or so, and then in the patient's mouth under an hour for all 6. So, the fit's excellent because we don't have any of the issues of, over prep of the burrs. We don't have to wait for each individual restoration to mill. It is all of them all at once. And whether it's a bigger case like this and you just print in partial or full coverage, or if you're doing anything posterior and it's just a single tooth, the time will pretty much take you around the same time. So under an hour, you can realistically achieve in practice by using a remote design service like Evidence. So definitely go and try it. Start your 3D printing journey today. Don't look back. And if you have any questions, then please feel free. Go on the Digital Dental Academy group on Facebook. Send me an email to info@digitaldentalacademy.co.uk. Or just message me on Facebook. I'm always around, whether it be to carry on with this level of work or anything else to do with digital. I'm here to help. But I hope you enjoyed that lecture, and I'll see you soon.
Hi, so I'm Maria with Evident, and I'm really excited to be in this partnership here with Ackuretta, with BEGO, and of course with Dr. Nulty, as we're showcasing this 1-hour crown workflow. Dr. Nulty did a really great job of kind of working through how to use us and all of that stuff, and I just wanted to ensure that you had just a bit more information as to who we are, what we do, how we're solving things in the industry, and everything in between. So what do we do? First off, we're one of the world's largest CAD/CAM design centers. We have a focus on supporting both the dentist side of the industry as well as the lab side of the industry. The great thing that we do is that we ensure that the experts that are dealing with either side of the industry are well equipped with the expertise to kind of work through any cases or any issues that you may face as you're working through everything on your side. So what problems are we trying to solve? So as Dr. Nulty had indicated, one of the bigger things that happens is how do you just jump into this digital workflow, and how are you able to get the support that you're needing in order to be able to go from start to finish? So we are in the middle of this workflow. We are experts in getting that CAD/CAM design taken care of in a quick and fast and efficient manner, following the requirements that you're needing for each of those cases. So we're able to, do, as has been indicated here, either a rush design service. We do have an overnight. We do try to, support everyone as best as we can within a 24-hour time period. So we're really trying to just ensure that everything is quick and efficient and that you're able to focus on what you do best, which is seeing your patients. Designs can be time consuming. If you do not have the opportunity to, get your hands on ExoCAD or one of the other design softwares out there, where you don't have the ability to have a team that's able to support you, it can be really, really time consuming. There can be a lot of remakes, little to no control on outcome. Software costs can be really high, and it can be a bit of a complicated workflow depending on where you are in that digital journey. So how do we solve it? We have the Hub. It is a very easy, user-friendly portal that allows you to communicate with our design team in order to be able to upload your scans, your photos, fill out a digital prescription, send over the treatment for our design center to be able to then take that, make the magic happen, and then send that design service back to you in order for you to print. We do have a variety of different options. We do a lot of different things. Our focus today is that 1-hour crown workflow. We think it's very valuable in ensuring that you're able to get the treatment for these patients done in a very, very quick way. It kind of, as patients have that issue with sometimes being at the dentist and the restrictions that they have and, maybe fear and all that stuff, it really kind of just solves all of those issues that you're trying to kind of face. You're able to save thousands in chair time because it's quick. You don't have to, focus on the software costs. You get a personal digital design planner. So for example, I'm here with Evident. I deal with a lot of dentists. My passion is dentist support. As you know, they had mentioned in the beginning, been in the industry for about 20 years. I eat, live, and breathe the digital workflow. Our design center team as well, they're very specific to the dentist side. You know, it can be very unique in the type of support that we need to provide, breaking down prescriptions, working through treatment and all of that stuff. So it's really important that our experts have the skill set to be able to deal with these cases. You know, we try to be as responsive as possible. I do work long hours to try to get everybody everything that they're needing. And it's really important for me to just be that extension of your team. So my job is to reduce your stress, let you focus on the things that you do best so that you're able to just do what you need to do chairside. So specific to the 1 hour workflow with us, just wanted to kind of work through that. So in total, it works up to about 55 minutes from when your patient arrives to when the case has been delivered. We do have a rush service. We have our design centers is pretty much a 24-hour service. We do have a team that works in my daytime. I'm in Pacific Standard. I'm in Vancouver, BC, Canada. And if you are able to, reach out to us, let us know that you have something super rushed to do, then we're able to have that technician set aside for you in order to ensure that that gets turned around quickly and that you can get that into your printer and throughout all of the other steps of the workflow in order to deliver that to your patient. How easy is it? Super easy. All you have to do is just head to hub.evidentdigital.com. Dr. Nulty had briefly shown how to kind of sign in the account in the video that he was showing. It's very straightforward. I do recommend that if you are going to create an account with us, please create it under the dentist that is using it. We do have a lot of support staff that will do that. And we end up with accounts under support staff names. So it's a bit tricky sometimes to designate who's who, but do create that under your dentist account. If you do need any support with this, you're more than welcome to reach out to me or any member of our team, and we'll help you either through TeamViewer or over the phone or however you're needing that support. It's as simple as creating that account. You fill in your information, indicate your role, fill out address, all that kind of stuff, and then you're pretty much ready to use it. When you're going in and requesting that crown design, it's just important that under the create new treatment, once you've gone ahead and opened up your account and created that first patient, is to just designate it under the crown and bridge kind of product here. And that'll allow our team to know exactly what you're needing. There is a bit of a comprehensive prescription that's attached as well. And it gives you the opportunity to fill out anything that you're needing. Dr. Nulty made a good point in his presentation just with regard to surface texture and such. As we calibrate or onboard you into our system and you work with your account manager, we are able to preset some of those options for you so that there may be a little bit of less finish time should you need a bit more of that distinction for your prints. We're always open to kind of pushing the boundaries a bit. We're always open to just ensuring that you've got anything and everything that you're wanting to do. We can support you along the way. No hesitations whatsoever. We're always eager to do what we can. And that's basically it for me. Dr. Nulty did such a great job. I just wanted to give you a really, really brief kind of look, see a little more information with regard to who we are. And again, just remember when working with us here at Evident, we are very well educated in the digital workflow. If you're curious about different printers, if you're curious about, different, methods of chairside protocol and such, or how to implement it, or even scanners, then we're here to help you along the way in any capacity, as well as with the partnership that we have with everyone here on this webinar as well. So thank you so much for your time, guys. I think that would be, yeah, now it's time for the live Q&A, guys. So bring them on. We're here to answer them. And I see Dr. Nulty is doing what he can to travel. And so lay it on us, and we'll sift through them as best as we can.
I'm trying to catch signals wherever I can.
Yeah, I heard the UK is having a bit of a struggle, hey? So
yeah. 5G's back now. I'm here.
Yay! That's a win. Just in time.
Just in time.
So we have a question here. I think this is for you, Marius.
Yes. Already vanished. No problem. But I remember the question from the chat. So a question was related to the color shade B1 of VarseoSmile Crown Plus, which turns out to be slightly yellow after printing. And the question was if there's an alternative material file for this. I'm afraid no, there is not an alternative material file, but also it's definitely not supposed to be yellowish after printing with Ackuretta. Should be not too big of a problem if this yellowish shade might be related to the photo initiators in the material. And if you wait for a few hours, usually it vanishes. But don't be afraid, that's not my solution. I would recommend you to get in contact with your sales representative or directly with us at BEGO and file a complaint so that we can have a closer look at your workflow and see what the issue is.
Dr. Nulty, have you had experience with the B1 and any of that stuff that Dr. Kempf had asked?
Well, I was gonna add there. My own experience was with more of the brighter shades with B1 and the bleaching shades that I had. In all honesty, I think I had possibly the opposite, which I didn't mind. My prints were a little bit more on the brighter side of tooth colored, which I never mind that, simply because I can add my own characteristics if I want to. But that was the bleaching shade. So, you know, I think from experience with tooth colored resins, I think the workflow is very specific. And to answer another question, why you should consider the Ackuretta workflow, is because it's open to using all of these, which, you know, a couple of the brands are open. But the reason why is because everything is calibrated and the material parameters are calibrated not only for the actual print, but for the whole of the workflow, including the curie as well, which is incredibly important to have the correct parameters for curing finishing. So like I said in the lecture there, the parameters for finishing is incredibly important, which it may have something to do with that. So I would definitely check whether you're using the correct parameters for that shade and that resin in your curie as well.
Yeah, I think that's helpful. Thank you. What else do you guys have out there for us?
Do you know what? I'm going to expand on, as Slawomir was asking, why should I choose the Ackuretta or Resiga or Sprimray? Look, I'm kind of in between, where there's a couple of different camps at the minute, where we have one camp that's basically saying that, you know, every type of 3D printer is good, including the very cheapest. And you've also got the more advanced group, which is basically saying, I'm saying advanced group, that's the wrong word to use. There's another group that's basically saying it should be only dental printers using dentistry. I'm kind of in between, because we advocate all of them, and I think really getting started with the cheap ones isn't a bad thing. The reason why I would go with an Ackuretta is because of that open workflow that I've said, but also because when you actually get into using things like this resin, the BEGO resin, when you're using more specific dental applications, and this is really where it's kind of divided, the way I was saying there, is because really both are right. And Ackuretta, I think, is a really nice printer, and it's in a special place in that divide, because it covers a bit of everything. It's not at the very highest end of price. It is more dental specific, but it's open. And the more you get into 3D printing in dentistry, you are going to want to use a lot of different resins for different applications. If not you, then someone else in your practice. So say that be, you know, guided surgery with a guide resin. You might decide to use key splint software resins. You know, the tooth resins, you might use BEGO resins. And don't get me wrong, some of the other manufacturers have some very, very good resins that are specific to their printers. But the great thing with Ackuretta is that it's not only limited to being open, and it's not only limited to the fact that they are keeping that workflow and the validated workflow from start to finish with the parameters out there for you, but it's also the ingenious little things like the different size build platforms, the support that's absolutely excellent from Ackuretta. They literally, any of our Scan Club members who've had a printer, if they ever have an issue, if it's something that's specific to the machine, they are on it, and that is, support is paramount, and they are truly excellent at that. So, you know, kudos to the guys over at the engineers and that I think they enjoy really speaking to people. And, you know, the same with Evident. You know, when I was doing this case, for me as someone who does things in-house, it's, you know, to go off on a tangent here, forgive me, but, you know, compliments to the Evident team. It was really nice actually to not have to spend my time designing things. And don't get me wrong, I love designing things. I love doing my Exicad side of things, but it is so easy to upload things and so quick, and the option to get it back same day within, Maria, 25 minutes is a rush stop. Am I right?
Yeah, so depending on the size of the case, of course, but yeah, generally speaking, we try to do a single crown within about 15 minutes or 15 to 20 minutes, give or take. And you know, we try to save about an hour if it's a full arch case. But yeah, if anyone has any other information that they're needing with regard to, you know, our turnaround times, then feel free to reach out and I can walk through that with you. But I absolutely appreciate the support, Dr. Nulty. It's great to hear that, you know,
genuinely, and you know, the same thing like I said with the Ackuretta stuff. I say it completely from the heart, simply because it works for me, and it's predictable and it's calibrated. And like I said, with those two camps, it's both, which is great. So I'm happy with that.
Thank you. And even in our office, like we've got an Ackuretta, my coworker uses it regularly and he absolutely loves it. We find that it's very quick and easy to use. Again, like you'd mentioned, support was great. You know, that is a little bit difficult. I know, as you'd mentioned, the two different camps, and I think that they refer to one of the camps as that like gumball machine type camp, and then, you know, the ones that are specific to the dental industry. And I think that what it boils down to is exactly that, is the support. And that's something that we take pride to at the design center as well, is ensuring that, you know, you can reach us, we can solve your problems, we can do all that stuff so that you can have this complete workflow from that intraoral scanner or that tabletop scanner all the way straight through to that print, so that you've got a satisfied patient as your end game, right?
All right, guys. I really appreciate all the kind words about Ackuretta. Unfortunately, our Ackuretta representative, Elon, had some technical issues, so I had to take over here real quick. So we're thrilled. Let's go through a little bit more of the questions that we've been getting. So another question we got from Slavomir was, he's currently looking at 3D printers, and I think you've answered a lot of this already. But Adam, I think this is mostly meant for you. Why should I choose an Ackuretta over one of the other rather more expensive printers that are on the market? And where do you really see Ackuretta kind of standing out? I think you answered a lot of it. If you could just boil it down to a few, then it would be great.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I never want to ever speak badly of any other company. I'm not going to, because number one, I don't have a sprint rate printer. I know people who have had sprint rate prints and rave about them, so that's great. Over the Sega, again, I've got an Sega Max UV. It's a great printer. It's a little bit more technical specific. It has some great feedback. So again, both of those, I'm not going to in any way downplay. So why I like the Ackuretta is, like I said, it's more than just a printer. It's more than just the open system. Even from when it first came, and it's packed beautifully, and little things. There's the little things with everything. And I'm opening my printer, and they've got foresight. They pack an extra LCD screen, and I was like, okay, does that mean I'm going to need one? And I said to Julia, do they fail often? And she's like, no, we just want to make sure everybody has the best customer experience, and you've got it there if you need it. And everything has been perfect. And I've been using it now, maybe a year and a half, Julia, something like that. So, but literally everything from the way it comes calibrated, it's just awesome. And the way that the resins are being expanded upon very actively. They're working on it, and it's because they're so active that I'm happy to say that I would 100% recommend them.
I think that is something that we really have going for us at Ackuretta, is that we validate every month. There are new resins that are coming out for the printers, and that also includes the small and the medium build platform. We had one question regarding the small and medium build platform because they are anodized. So Nick Kentris asked if the dark coloring on the build platform would lead to a colored effect on the ceramic, like for ceramic filled resins. So Professor Nulty, Adam, did you see the impact of the, did you see any, like, does it rub off? Do you see any of the residue on the BEGO?
I've never noticed that. And to be honest with you, I've been throwing some, I haven't put some pictures on recently because I've been busy with this, but the last few weeks I've been trying to do some weird stuff with the build platforms with the small sizes. I'm trying to throw bigger things in connected to a small, a small build plate and, things like that, which with very clear resins, some of the like the Curo guide resin, some of the key splint resins, and I've never noticed any discoloration whatsoever. So I haven't even thought about that, to be honest with you. You thought about that before me, Nick, and well done. But no, I haven't.
I do have a quick question, or maybe actually a little bit of a comment, just to circle back on, how to decide on these 3D printers. Dr. Nulty, did you find that you had any issue with, say, your support staff and the learning curve, or high turnover, or anything like that? Like, how did you find implementing all these different printers? Because I think that is definitely an interesting topic of conversation for anyone looking into this digital workflow and how to proceed with the printer like Ackuretta and the ease of use.
Yeah, and I think to expand on that really leads into one of the newest features that Julia was passing on a few weeks ago with.
Ooh, right when I was going to get to the good part.
Oh, it looks like we have run into some technical issues. That's all right. So let's address some of the questions that came for BEGO and Marius, maybe. So we had a question again from Slavomir, who asked if the 3D printed ceramic materials are coming anytime soon. Now, I think that is because it is a ceramic filled resin. So let's get to that one. Maybe you can give us some insights on more about the ingredients of your BEGO material. That would.
Well, I'm afraid I can't get into detail about the ingredients of a material, but what I can say is it's obviously it's a composite resin with a polymerical structure, and within the polymerical structure you have the ceramic filling. What you are asking about is I think the other way around, and we see in the market there are first approaches regarding 3D printing of ceramics, which is based also on DLP printing, and you have you just use the polymerical part in order to stabilize the shape of the object you're printing, and then you have to burn out the polymerical part and by this harden the ceramic part. So far, I've seen nothing that would be applicable for smaller labs or for dentists, for clinics. And even though I'm not sure if this is really coming in the future. So what I would expect short term is that the hybrid materials, which is VarseoSmile Crown Plus, for example, the ceramic filled hybrid materials are coming more and more, and my expectation is that in the future that these materials will be developed further and improved further. But yeah, no ceramic printing on the horizon for day-for-day use, so far as I can see.
Okay, Marius, we had one more question about the pricing for VarseoSmile Crown Plus, and I think here we can just say in the chat you can see that we added the link to contact BEGO, and we'll add it again. So just contact BEGO and you'll get the pricing information. That was a question from Carlos.
Yes, definitely. So please get into contact with our sales team. They'll be happy to send you a quote. Well, short answer to the question is half-liter bottle is around 730 euro. But please don't be shocked. If you count it down to the single crown, then you're around at a material cost around €1.50 to €2. So compared to other materials, it's still at the lower end of the price range.
All right. Hello, Professor Nulty. You're back with us. Good to see you. All right. Maria, about evidence. I'm sure there's a lot of questions, for example, regarding where can I access evidence from, for example. So could you tell us and the listeners just generally, who has access to Evident and how do I best get in touch with you guys?
Yeah, so everybody has access to Evident. You can check out our website at evidentdigital.com. There was also the link that Julia had shared about signing up a Hub account. It's globally available. We are, wherever you are, however you want to send your stuff, we're here to help you in any capacity. In order to, immediate questions or anything like that, then you do have the ability to, you can send me an email. Julia can post my email again. It's mckim@evidentlabs.com, or you can give me a shout, area code 604-259-6043. As I'd mentioned, I'm located in Vancouver, BC, Canada. I typically work between the hours of, 8:30 a.m. Pacific Standard to about 5:30 a.m. Pacific Standard, PM. But everything else in between, you can text that number. You can also find me on WhatsApp if you need to. That's under 604-512-8985 for those that, want to communicate through WhatsApp. But yeah, reach out to me, pigeon, whatever, it doesn't matter. I am here to help get you on board and really embracing this digital workflow. As I'd mentioned, I've implemented a lot of workflows. I'm really familiar with kind of the process treatment planning. I've worked with a lot of clinicians that are, Kois or Pankey or Spears or everything else in between. So you're going to be well supported in, using us as a service. Me specifically, as well as, the rest of our dentist team. We're passionate. We want you to be successful. We want you to be able to focus specifically on your patients and allow us to kind of take a little bit that stress load off of you. But, as well, we can help with all sorts of other things. If you are wanting to design on your own, we can help you with that too. So there's a variety of different things. So reach out with any questions specific to who we are, what we do, things that we offer, because I think we're definitely out there to get you successful in that digital journey.
That is so awesome. Thank you so much. I will definitely try the carrier pigeon next time.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how that's going to work out for me. But thank you so much for your contribution to this. It's been really valuable, and the cooperation with you guys is great. So we're looking forward to much more of that. Professor Nulty, I would love for you to have the space real quick. I want to hear about Scan Club, and I want to hear a bit more about IDDA, because you guys do some brilliant classes, courses, and you provide some great services. So I am positive that the audience would love to hear a bit more about that. And yeah, thank you so much for joining. Same thing for Marius, BEGO. It's always a pleasure to work with you guys. Yeah, so I will give over the floor to Professor Nulty again. Okay, that was a bad decision. All right.
Poor guy.
Yeah. So to everybody who's still here and listening, I'm just going to explain real quick. We are unfortunately having a really difficult time in the UK when it comes to internet, Wi-Fi signal, some sort of mobile data. It seems to be a really tough time right now. So unfortunately, Professor Nulty is a little bit on and off here. However, then I will just conclude this here, I would say. Thank you so much to BEGO. Thank you, Marius, for being here. Thank you, Maria, for being here.
No problem.
Oh, okay. We have somebody back here. Okay. Professor Nulty, do you want to have some final words here before we let you go?
Yeah. Do you know what? I just want to say thank you very much for having me to speak. I'm sorry I'm trying to catch the Wi-Fi to come back, and I would travel to go and get the Wi-Fi. So I'm sorry I'm in and out for these questions. I'm going to pull over for the last 2 minutes because I've got somewhere that is 5G again, amazingly. I live out in the middle of nowhere. So, no, genuinely, amazing experience to work with. Evident and BEGO resins are beautiful. So thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to show people that. And yeah, the IDDA you alluded to with the support we provide with that, the whole point of everything with the IDDA is collaboration with everyone everywhere, and to really take digital dentistry to the next level in terms of education. And if any of you want to be a member, want to take part, want to teach, then please let me know. And we're always looking for new people to work with. So yeah, and you can let us know anytime if you have any questions. You can get in touch with me with Facebook, email, or through the group anytime.
All right. Thank you so much, everybody. I think we're going to send a follow-up email to all the attendees, and you're going to get all the links as well to get in touch with Maria and get in touch with BEGO, or to get in touch with Professor Nulty and the IDDA guys. It's been an absolute pleasure. I thank you so much for your knowledge and for your skills. You really put it to use, and you're really showing everybody how incredible 3D printing and digital dentistry can be. And so I really appreciate it. And yeah, I look forward to our next round, I'd say. Next time, no technical issues. That's the action-filled evening. All right. Have a good day, everybody. And then that's it from Ackuretta, BEGO, Evident, and the IDDA, represented by Professor Nulty.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Evening.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.